Episode 15, The Calm Before. The sunlight felt foreign on Evelyn's skin as she emerged from the cave. After the dim, suffocating darkness of the ancient chamber, the light seemed too bright, too warm. It felt unreal, as if the world outside had somehow moved on without her, while she had been trapped in that place with the Hollow Man. She stood for a moment at the cave's entrance, blinking against the sudden brightness. The dense forest stretched out before her, the towering trees swaying gently in the breeze. Birds chirped, leaves rustled, and the world felt normal, peaceful, as if nothing had changed. But everything had changed. The weight of the Hollow Man inside her was a constant reminder of that. Even in the open air, where the sunlight should have chased away all shadows, Evelyn could feel the darkness lurking in her mind. It was subtle now, more of a whisper than a shout, but it was there. The Hollow Man was still with her. She took a deep breath, willing herself to move forward. Her body ached, each step a reminder of the toll the ritual had taken. She hadn't fully recovered from the ordeal, but she knew she couldn't stay by the cave any longer. She had to get back to town, had to figure out what her next steps would be. But part of her wondered if the town would even feel like home anymore. As she made her way through the forest, her mind raced with questions. The first had said the curse was broken, but the Hollow Man was still inside her. What did that mean? How was she supposed to live with this? Would he always be there, waiting for her to let her guard down? And what about her family? The curse had haunted them for generations, but now she was the only one left. Would she be able to keep the Hollow Man contained, or would he eventually find a way to break free and continue his reign of terror? The questions circled in her mind like vultures, each one more pressing than the last. But no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't find any answers. The walk back to town felt longer than it had on the way to the cave. The weight of what she carried now made every step feel like a burden. By the time she reached the edge of the woods and the first rooftops of the village came into view, her legs felt like they could give out at any moment. The town looked the same as it always had. Quaint and quiet, with small houses lining the cobblestone streets. It was the kind of place where people still left their doors unlocked and where the biggest gossip was usually about someone's garden or a new bakery opening. But as Evelyn approached, she felt a strange disconnection from it all. Everything seemed distant, as if she was watching the town through a fog. People waved to her as she passed, offering polite smiles and friendly greetings, but Evelyn barely noticed. She kept her head down, her thoughts too heavy to acknowledge them. She didn't know how to interact with the world anymore, not when she was carrying this darkness inside her. As she reached the outskirts of the village, she hesitated. She had no idea what to do next. Going back to her house felt wrong. It was filled with too many memories, and too much pain. But there was nowhere else to go. Before she could make a decision, a voice called out to her. Evelyn. She looked up to see Caleb jogging toward her, his expression a mixture of relief and concern. He skidded to a stop in front of her, out of breath, but worried. "I've been looking everywhere for you," Caleb said, his eyes searching her face for any sign of what had happened. "Are you okay?" "What? What happened?" Evelyn opened her mouth to respond, but the words caught in her throat. How could she explain any of this to Caleb? He had known about the curse, of course, but he didn't truly understand the depth of it. He didn't know about the Hollow Man's power, about the darkness that now lived inside her. I'm fine," she finally managed to say, though her voice was hollow. Caleb frowned, clearly not convinced. "Evelyn, you look exhausted. You've been gone for days." "I was starting to think." He trailed off, shaking his head. "What happened in the cave? Did you break the curse?" Evelyn's chest tightened at the question. She had broken the curse, technically. The Hollow Man was bound, but she wasn't free. Far from it. "It's over," she said quietly, her gaze dropping to the ground. "The curse is broken." Caleb let out a breath, relief washing over his features. "That's great news. I knew you could do it." But as he reached out to place a comforting hand on her shoulder, Evelyn flinched. Caleb froze, his hand hovering in the air, confusion flickering in his eyes. "Evelyn?" he asked cautiously. "What's wrong?" She stepped back, shaking her head. She didn't want to explain. She couldn't explain. How could she tell him that the Hollow Man was still inside her, that she was the vessel now? That she wasn't free, even if the curse had been lifted? I just need some time," she muttered, turning away from him. "I need to be alone for a while." Caleb hesitated, clearly torn between wanting to help and respecting her space. "Evelyn, you don't have to go through this alone. Whatever happened in that cave, you can talk to me. You've been through a lot, but you're still you." She wished that were true. She wanted so desperately to believe that she was still the same person, that the Hollow Man hadn't changed her. But deep down, she knew it wasn't that simple. She could already feel his influence, the subtle pull of his darkness, like a shadow cast over her every thought. "I just need time," she repeated, her voice barely a whisper. Caleb frowned but nodded slowly. "Okay. But if you need anything, I'm here. Don't forget that." Evelyn nodded, though she didn't look back at him. As she walked away, her thoughts raced again. She needed time to think, to process what had happened, but more than anything, she needed to figure out how to keep the Hollow Man contained. The First had said it was up to her now, to stay strong, to hold on to the light. But as the weight of the Hollow Man's presence pressed down on her mind, Evelyn wasn't sure how long she could hold out. She found herself wandering through the village, avoiding familiar faces and well-meaning neighbors. She wasn't ready for their questions or their sympathy. She wasn't ready for anything. The world felt strange now, foreign, as if she didn't quite belong in it anymore. Eventually, she found herself by the old stone bridge at the edge of town. The river flowed gently beneath it, the sound of the water soothing in its steadiness. Evelyn sat down on the stone ledge, staring into the rippling surface. The Hollow Man's voice echoed in her mind, a cold whisper that sent chills down her spine. "You can't escape me, Evelyn. I am part of you now. Forever." She closed her eyes, trying to shut him out, but it was no use. He was there, always there, waiting for her to slip. As she sat by the river, the weight of her new reality settled in. The curse was broken, but her battle was far from over. And deep down, she knew the worst was yet to come. End of episode 15.